Let's take it back to the year 2006. In film, Martin Scorsese delivered one of his masterpieces with the crime thriller The Departed, and in gaming, Nintendo Wii was released, revolutionizing the way we game at home. Meanwhile, on the hardwood, the league was in the midst of a talent revolution. The star power, entertainment value, and cinematic drama were at an all-time high. Performances perceived impossible were becoming a reality on a nightly basis, a new generation of stars believed their time was now, and the old guard was making one final push before their time was officially up. Join us as we deep dive into this critical year from start to finish in the NBA in 2006, a year in review. As the 05-06 NBA season kicked off, many teams and players were jockeying for position to make a big splash, and this couldn't be truer in the Western Conference, which was an absolute gauntlet at the time. Whether it was last year's champion San Antonio Spurs, the high-octane offenses of the Phoenix Suns and Dallas Mavericks, or surprisingly elite teams like the LA Clippers and Denver Nuggets, the Western Conference, unlike any time in NBA history, was an absolute bloodbath. Over in the Eastern Conference, this year featured the league-leading team in win totals, the Detroit Pistons, who were at the height of their powers. After winning the 2004 championship and making it to the finals for the second straight year in 2005, these Pistons were at it again with their same crew, headlined by Chauncey Billups, Ben Wallace, Rasheed Wallace, and Richard Hamilton, all four of whom made the All-Star team this year. Speaking of All-Star, LeBron James was in his true breakout year. The third-year sensation from Cleveland was putting the entire league on notice this year. He was unlike any talent or physical specimen that the league had ever seen. A body that big and strong, charging downhill like an unstoppable locomotive, he would leap into the infinite abyss for a block or dunk, seemingly always standing head and shoulders above the competition, and he read the game like a sage old veteran, creating brilliant passes and plays for himself and his teammates. His Cavs team still lacked the requisite help he needed, but his talent was undeniable, averaging a career-best 31 points per game, along with 7 rebounds and 7 assists, putting on full display his all-around game. In only his third year, he would come second in MVP voting and was named to the All-NBA First Team for the first time in his career. All that being said, as competitive as the Western Conference was, as great as Detroit as a team was, and as great as LeBron James individually was looking, no one player and no one team burned brighter or better than Kobe Bryant in 2006. During this season, Kobe was on a different stratosphere than the rest. Without a shadow of a doubt, you ask anybody in the league at the time, Kobe was the best singular talent, the face of the entire league. The 10th year guard was in his absolute prime, but more important than that, he was on a mission. He was going to do anything and everything to not only get into the postseason, which he failed to do the season prior, but go as deep into the playoffs as physically possible. And during this pursuit, Kobe would put up individual scoring performances that still leave fans in shock today. The first came in December 2005 against an elite Dallas Mavericks team. On this night, Kobe not only beat Dallas, he demoralized them, scoring on the top-seeded Mavericks at will, from 3, from the mid-range, and drives to the basket. And after the first 3 quarters, Dallas had tallied 61 points, and Kobe had tallied 62 points. Yeah, you heard that right. Through the first 3 quarters, he outscored the entire Dallas Mavericks team by himself. It was an incredible feat that left fans mesmerized. But that wasn't even his greatest performance that year. That one would come just a month later against the Toronto Raptors. The Raptors were not a good team in 2006, but the Lakers, outside of Kobe, weren't good either, so every Lakers game this season was highly competitive. And against Toronto in January 2006, Kobe exploded, en route to scoring a ridiculous 81 points, the second highest scoring performance in NBA history, second only to Wilt Chamberlain's 100-point effort in the 60s. But this one was different. Kobe wasn't a towering physical force like Wilt was over his competition in the 60s. Also, Kobe is a guard, and unlike Wilt, Kobe's buckets came from all over the place, whether it be in the paint, in the mid-range, and from 3. This is arguably the greatest individual performance in NBA history. And it wasn't just those 2 performances. Kobe would reach a level of scoring this season that no one thought possible. He averaged 43 points in the month of January, he had 4 50-plus point games this season, and he had multiple strings of consecutive 40-point performances as if it was so easy to put a 40 in the NBA. In the end, Kobe would go on to average a ridiculous 35 points per game and lifted a very mediocre Lakers team to the 7th seed in a highly competitive Western Conference. Many in the media as well as fans from all over believed Kobe had done enough to win his first league MVP award. Unfortunately for Kobe, that award went to Steve Nash for the second straight season in what remains one of the most hotly debated MVP awards in NBA history. Those who disagree say that Nash's 2005 award was deserving enough for the revolutionary style of basketball that he was ushering in Phoenix. He didn't need to win again in 2006. Many also thought that the voting was biasing against Kobe, as the shadow of Kobe's 2003 legal case was still relatively fresh in the public's mind. However you look at it, history is history, and Steve Nash will go down as one of the best point guards ever, cemented by 2 back-to-back league MVPs. Did Steve Nash deserve to win MVP for a second straight season, or did Kobe get robbed? Or was someone else more deserving? Let me know what you think in the comments below. It is only fitting that these 2 MVP candidates would meet in the first round of the NBA playoffs, the best player on the planet versus the best offense in the league. This series had all the bells and whistles of an exciting matchup, and as Game 1 got underway, both Phoenix and LA did not disappoint. There was fire, there was drama, and there was growing tension game by game. And in Game 5 of this series, Phoenix's primary Kobe defender Raja Bell famously or infamously, however you look at it, violently clotheslined Kobe to the ground. In an act of frustration, or an act of defiance, or just a harsh message to Kobe that he wasn't going to back down, Bell laid Kobe out, perfectly encapsulating the physicality and drama of this series. Another defining moment of this series and the entire playoffs in general came in Game 4. With LA up 2-1, Kobe added to the drama. With LA down 1 in overtime with 6 seconds remaining, Kobe did what Kobe does.
Bryant with the save.
Oh, you gotta get a shot here.
Final seconds. Bryant for the win. Bang! Officials, you'll be still looking at it. They haven't made the official announcement yet. Oh, no question.
Oh,
I don't know what the delay is.
Yeah, not even.
Another career-defining buzzer beater. Another moment added to his improbable legacy. But as great and as legendary as this shot was, how this series unfolded adds to the complex character that is Kobe Bryant. Miraculously, Phoenix, once down 3-1, came roaring back to force a Game 7 in Phoenix. And this series defining Game 7, Kobe, who just led the league in scoring at 35 points per game, ironically would go on to attempt only 3 shots in the second half. Whether this was in frustration, as his team was already down by 15 after the first half, or this was intentional, as a similar strategy of Kobe prioritizing playmaking had been deployed previously, or this was in defiance, as Kobe had been voicing his discontent of the inferior Lakers' roster, Kobe and the Lakers would get eliminated and bounced from the playoffs in embarrassing fashion. Kobe's decision to only attempt 3 shots in the second half of a closeout Game 7 was seen as selfish, petty, and incredibly disappointing. And there really is no other way to put it. This is one of the ugliest stains on the legacy of the late great Kobe Bryant. The other side of the Western Conference bracket saw Dallas and San Antonio match up in the playoffs as they had done the last 3 years, and each of those last 3 years saw San Antonio defeat Dallas. In addition to Dallas seeking some revenge, this series had more tension than you could imagine. Avery Johnson, the longtime Spurs point guard in the 90s, was now Dallas's head coach. Longtime Mavericks veteran Michael Finley was now a Spur, and 8th-year forward Dirk Nowitzki was seen as good but not yet great. Amongst most NBA aficionados, Tim Duncan and Dirk Nowitzki were the 2 best power forwards in the league, but the overarching consensus was that Dirk would never reach Duncan's level. Critics claimed Dirk was too weak and just too soft. But as this series got underway, every game saw Dirk shed more and more of this quote-unquote soft label. He was proving to the world that he was anything but that. He went toe-to-toe with Duncan, even outplaying the 2-time MVP in certain games, letting the world know that he had arrived. And during the climactic 7th and final game of this series, Dirk put together a masterpiece, scoring 37 points and 15 rebounds, including the game-tying and 1 field goal to send the game to overtime. In probably one of the closest and most intense playoffs matchups in NBA history, Dallas would emerge victorious and finally defeat the champion San Antonio Spurs in 7 games. The Eastern Conference Finals will be another rematch, a rematch of last year's Eastern Conference Finals between the Miami Heat and the Detroit Pistons, which Detroit would eventually go on to win. And in 2006, Miami was on a mission to not repeat last year's woes. For all the talk of Detroit's depth, Miami's roster in 2006 was deeper. Dwayne Wade and Shaquille O'Neal were the headlines, but a supporting cast of veterans, including Gary Payton, Antoine Walker, Jason Williams, and Alonzo Mourning, rounded out this incredibly deep Miami Heat team. In the end, Miami beat Detroit in 6 games, punching their ticket to the NBA Finals for the first time in franchise history. The NBA Finals featured 2 franchises that had never been this close, and you can imagine how badly each of these teams wanted to do it for their respective cities and fan bases. As the series got underway, the matchup was intriguing. No one team was favored, and both teams were hitting their stride at the right time. In the first 2 games in Dallas, the Mavericks dominated by committee. Jason Terry, one of the most underrated players of this decade, dropped 31 points in Game 1. Jerry Stackhouse, an 11-year veteran, provided instant offense off the bench, and whenever Miami tried to rally back, Dirk Nowitzki crushed any semblance of a Miami comeback, truly becoming one of the great clutch players in basketball. After the first 2 games, Dallas had all the momentum and looked like the fresher, younger, and more spry team. But as the scene shifted to Miami for Game 3, it would be a seesaw battle headlined by Dirk Nowitzki and Dwayne Wade. Dirk put up 30 points, putting together a masterclass of his entire offensive playbook. However, Wade took his game to a level few in the history of the league could or would ever get to, exploding for 42 points, including 15 in the fourth quarter, sending Dallas its first loss in a critical Game 3. Miami and D. Wade specifically would roll this newfound momentum into Game 4, annihilating Dallas by 24 points to even the series at 2 games apiece. This all led to the very pivotal Game 5 in which Wade, in only his 3rd year in the league, proved to be the best player on the court and maybe even the best player in the world at the time. He was relentless at his drives to the basket, putting pressure on the Dallas defense all night long, going for another unbelievable 43-point performance. One controversy, unfortunately, that can't be ignored is Wade's free throw attempts in Game 5, as well as the final Game 6, which remain a hotly debated topic to this day. Dallas Mavericks owner Mark Cuban will go on the offensive after the series, and for a couple of years thereafter, emphasizing the free throw discrepancy that saw Wade's free throw attempts basically match that of the entire Dallas team in the final 2 games of the series. Those who argue for Wade claim this is Wade's game. Wade harnesses his speed, athleticism, and strength, and earning buckets at the free throw line is part of Wade's greatness. Naysayers say Wade's 25 free throw attempts in Game 5 compared to Dallas's 25, and Wade's 21 attempts in Game 6 compared to Dallas's 23 is egregious, lopsided, and ultimately unfair. Officiating and controversy aside, Wade was brilliant in these 2006 finals, and no one should take anything away from him. He put together one of the greatest finals performances in NBA history, averaging 35 points and 8 rebounds per game, as he would lead the Miami Heat to their first NBA championship ever. He would win Finals MVP, and Shaq would win his 4th championship and his first without Kobe. This is the championship that Shaq needed to not to cement his legacy. His legacy was already defined from his 3-peat years, but to really stick it to Kobe. Because remember, it was the prevailing thought around the league that Kobe shipped Shaq out of LA, and Kobe did not need Shaq to continue winning rings in LA. By the end of 2006, Shaq had delivered his new team its first championship, and he helped elevate Dwayne Wade to a true star in this game. As for Kobe, well, his Lakers got bounced in the first round, and his Lakers did not appear close to returning to championship contention. Now that Shaq won his 4th ring, all eyes would turn exclusively to Kobe. The need to win without Shaq went from a nice to have to an absolute must have. With a win, Kobe's body of work up until this point would be celebrated and ultimately validated. Without it, Kobe was just lucky to be on Shaq's Lakers, proving once and for all that he was only second fiddle to the true leader of the Lakers' dynasty. For Kobe, because of all of this, the inability to still not win an MVP, and the spiral of mediocrity the Lakers appeared to be in, the pressure was on.